Welcome to the Pharma Source podcast, recorded on stage at CDMO Live Europe 2026 in Rotterdam. This episode is sponsored by Pharma, a fully integrated CRDMO providing research, development and manufacturing services from early discovery to commercial production. The theme for this year's event is Partnerships for an Uncertain World, because it's been a chaotic year. How many of you have had to draw up scenario plans you hoped you'd never need? Tariffs, reshoring, supply disruption. But underneath all of this, the fundamental question is, who do I trust when something goes wrong? And that kind of trust starts in person.
CDMO Live is built on one core belief, that the right partnerships are essential to navigating the uncertainty and getting life-changing therapies to patients. And that has never mattered more than it does in 2026.
And to kick things off, I'm delighted to welcome the Simon Kucher team to the stage. We've been working with Khan and with Clarita for the last 2 years on this, and it's exclusive research between Simon Kucher and ourselves, and we're really fascinated to see some of the findings which are coming through. And a round of applause.
First of all, thank you so much, Luke and Chris, for the kind introduction. And welcome, Rotterdam.
We have surveyed 120 senior executives from CDMOs and pharma companies for the CDMO Growth Report 2026. We have all the data. And instead of just throwing the data at you today, we thought we're going to do things slightly different this time.
We want to show you what it's actually like to sit at both sides of the negotiation table. So today, I will take the pharma perspective.
And I'll be representing the CDMO view.
So let's see how that will go.
But first things first, who are we? Simon Kucher is a global consultancy focused on unlocking better growth. We are focusing on commercial strategy, pricing, marketing, sales, and we have been around for 40 years. I am Khan. I am leading our pharma services practice for the company, and I have the pleasure working with many of you in this room and other CDMOs in helping them driving profitable growth in a very volatile environment.
And my name is Clarita, director based in our Cologne office, and co-authoring together with Khan the CDMO Growth Report together with our friends from Pharma Source. And today is really to be considered as a sneak preview into the 2026 results. The full report will be dropped a little bit later this year, so make sure you scan the QR code at the end of the presentation so we can send it along your way once it's ready. But let's look at what we will cover today. Who did we speak to? Who did we survey? What did we learn from that? And lastly, what can you take away from that? We want to make sure you can all walk away with something tangible today you can take into your first meetings that are coming up later. So let's start with the first point. Who did we survey?
120 respondents, strong representation from more than 100 companies, a global sample with Europe, North America, and APAC, large molecules, small molecules, and the timeline was January to May, so this is current. Now, the split matters. We have spoken or received inputs from 45 experts from pharma, ranging from emerging pharma, the biotech, small pharma of this world, as well as established pharma, so the big pharma companies. And on the CDMO side, we received inputs from 70 leaders from different types of CDMOs, ranging from early phase focused CDMOs to late phase focused CDMOs and truly end-to-end players. And the split matters. For each of the insights that we're going to present today, we will basically show you what both sides think. And this will be key, because today is all about understanding the quality of relationships, the quality of strategic partnerships. Oh my God, strategic partnership. What a buzzword this has become in the industry, right? You read about it, hear about it after every major industry event. So what we really want to do is break this down a little bit more. So first of all, are strategic partnerships really on the radar screen on both sides? Secondly, what does strategic partnership actually mean? And then thirdly, what is currently the quality of delivering these strategic partnerships? So let's start with some genuinely good news.
Looking at the first question, is this actually on the radar screen? Yes. From a pharma side, especially for emerging pharma, clear confirmation, 95% of emerging pharma say strategic partnerships are becoming more important. So quite a clear indication. Similarly, on the established pharma side, we also see that 2/3 share the same view. 1/3 within that segment, however, says not so much change expected, which, however, is also not surprising given that we already see more strategic partnerships within the established pharma space than in the emerging side.
And on the CDMO side, commercial teams are also reorganizing internally. 80% of CDMOs expect that the role of business development will actually shift more and more towards strategic partnership management as opposed to just transactional selling. So this is good news. There's broad alignment on the direction of travel. Nevertheless, it's easy to agree that a strategic partnership is important. But agreeing on what does it actually mean is obviously the more tricky question. So let's break it down. What does it mean? Starting with the pharma side.
So, for both emerging and established pharma, the top 3 priorities are clear and aligned. High level of trust, transparency, and open communication. Joint long-term planning and shared strategic objectives. And willingness to share risks and benefits. So, the fundamentals of strategic partnerships seem quite clear on the pharma side.
So let's look at the CDMO side with all the different sub-sectors. The good news is that there is broad alignment on the fundamentals. Look at number 1, look at number 2, very much aligned with pharma. High level of trust, transparency, open communication, joint long-term planning, and shared strategic objectives. So there's common ground that also deserves some recognition.
But we do need to take a closer look here. You see a lot of the additional points that are mentioned as components of a strategic partnership definition actually start to differ a little bit once we go a little bit to the second layer. And components such as flexibility and responsiveness or integrated quality and regulatory collaborations do not have such a clear alignment on the pharma side. That means a one-size-fits-all communication strategy for pharma and collaboration strategy will not work, even if you break it down by emerging or established pharma types. You need to take a closer look, breaking down each segment into more specific archetypes to really understand who is sitting across from you at the negotiation table.
And also from the CDMO side, what is a strategic partner beyond those two, number 1, number 2 factors, will also differ depending on who you ask. So in essence, it seems that both parties are bringing in different blueprints. And there's no right or wrong, it's just different blueprints. And the opportunity, obviously, is to talk about the different blueprints, to have alignment from the very get-go before you actually start your strategic partnership. So having said this, we now want to go into probably the more interesting question, which is assessing the quality of strategic partnerships. And we have actually approached that from 2 angles. There will be 2 scores, 2 KPIs that we will present to you today. The first one is what we call goal alignment. This basically measures how well are the goals aligned between CDMOs as well as biopharma companies. Goals with regard to the main trade-offs that matter, that they take into these strategic partnerships. And what is interesting here We asked pharma directly, what are your main trade-offs? And then we actually asked CDMOs to give us their view of what pharma thinks. And the results are quite surprising.
The second score that you should keep in mind is the expectation fulfillment score, measuring to what extent is pharma actually satisfied with the fulfillment of their needs from their CDMO partners. So let's take a look at the results. And we actually mapped the different CDMO types to the different pharma types for specific collaborations among the surveyed respondents. We do see that on a goal alignment side, actually the picture does not look too bad. Especially on the emerging biopharma and early phase CDMO side, still some improvement to really understand what does the other side want and need from the collaboration. However, for the rest, I would say a good start. The more concerning view is regarding the expectations fulfillment, where for established pharma working with both early and late phase CDMOs, we have a score below 50%. So I suggest we take a closer look and really understand what is behind those numbers. Starting off with the first combination, late phase CDMOs and established pharma. On this view, you can basically now understand what are the priorities and trade-offs from a pharma point of view for a successful collaboration. Highest ranked is quality, probably not surprising. Secondly, we have partnership-oriented price models and then scientific expertise. However, what you can also see is that the following criteria actually have similar scores, meaning that many of these factors are indeed considered in the collaboration assessment. And from a pharma side, there's really a multifactorial assessment to see which collaboration with different CDMO companies would be most beneficial.
Now, let's have a look at the CDMO perspective and the overarching goal alignment. Well, goal alignment comes out at 77%, which is actually decent and also, again, requires some recognition. But if you double-click and go a little bit deeper, you can see that there are two aspects that are out of sync. So, looking at the number 2 aspect here, the second most important aspect for pharma companies, partnership-oriented price models. CDMOs tend to underweigh this by more than double. Only 5% of the overall preference share. This is a significant gap. And in addition to that, on the flip side, you can see that CDMOs significantly over-index on timelines, more than double. So CDMOs have a different view on what their late-phase pharma or established pharma companies actually prioritize most. And this needs to be addressed. And those are actually the commercial aspects. And winning CDMOs need to address this to make sure that they can elevate these strategic partnerships to a more calibrated way of working. So, goal alignment at 77%.
With that number in mind, the next point here will be even more striking. Expectations fulfillment at 44%. 44%. Really think about that. We do see here that actually for a lot of the criteria that are top of mind for pharma, those companies do not recognize those needs to be fulfilled from their CDMO partners. Most strikingly on the partnership-oriented price models. Number 2, in terms of the collaboration importance. 54% of pharma say that almost no or only few of their CDMO partners are fulfilling their expectations. So a clear improvement need. Similarly, on the timeline point of view, which is actually quite interesting after what Khan just shared, that CDMOs are actually over-indexing a little bit on that point still lacking behind in terms of the fulfillment. However, there's also some good news here. On the communication and collaboration side, there's quite a positive picture, and Pharma seems to be quite satisfied with how this is going with the collaboration.
So may I ask all the CDMOs to take a breath again? Because this obviously also comes with opportunities. First of all, there are already best practices. As you can see, there is also a little bit of green. And the opportunity basically sits within the yellow and the red. So there are indeed opportunities for you to double down on those aspects that matter most to pharma companies. And the biopharma companies in this room are also not without responsibility either. If you realize that certain things are not aligned, do not bring this up in your 3-year meeting. Bring this up as soon as you recognize that, right? So in order to bring up the fulfillment scores, I think it's a shared responsibility. Talk about this, agree on KPIs, measure those, and then agree on way forward. So it really seems that reading pharma and delivering for pharma are two very different things. Now let's have a look at the other pair.
So now we have the view for emerging pharma working with late-phase CDMOs. What you can see is that the importance of some of these factors and trade-offs to be made changed. So emerging pharma do have different priorities. Ability to meet tight timelines and cost effectiveness clearly increased to the top of the list, while, for example, partnership-oriented price models move down a little bit.
Now, on the CDMO side, you can see that there is alignment. We are now at 82%, but there are still some aspects that are, again, a little bit out of sync. And you can see it clearly. Cost is as critical as speed. But CDMOs are not clearly reading the signal yet. Yeah? So again, the same tendency for ability to meet timelines, and cost effectiveness is not recognized and not in line with realities.
The good news is, though, that on the fulfillment side, we have a slightly better picture. Still improvement needed, but we do see more pharma companies actually being satisfied with the fulfillment levels of their expectations. One point to highlight again is the partnership-oriented price models, where also from an emerging pharma and late-phase CDMO collaboration point of view, there is a clear need for improvement. So I suggest we take a little bit closer look into that topic specifically.
So let's start with the status quo. What type of alternative partnership models are currently used? And the good news is there are prevalent models beyond a conventional fee-for-service project-based pricing. We see that the majority of participants actually see milestone-based payments already happening. And we see that there's also a good chunk, roughly 50%, that also already use discounted rates tied to long-term commitments and take-or-pay models. Roughly 1/3 are also starting to use performance-based pricing as well as dedicated suites. So this is a bit where we are coming from. And now the big question is, what about the future?
From a pharma point of view, the future should include more milestone-based payments and also more discounted rates tied to long-term commitments, even though those models are already most prevalent. So, good direction the past has taken, but the journey is not yet over. What is quite interesting is that actually the models that are less used today are, I would say, underused from a pharma point of view. So, performance-based pricing is actually a clear desire from both emerging and established pharma, with more than 60% indicating they would like to see this being used more.
Well, and on the CDMO side, it's a bit of a mixed bag. You can see that there are a number of areas where the direction of travel is pretty much aligned between CDMOs and biopharma companies. So just to call out certain things, when you look into performance-based pricing, the future ambition to use these models more is pretty much the same when it comes to late-phase focused CDMOs compared to the pharma counterparts. But there are already some areas where we see that there is a risk of underserving future pharma demand. When it comes to performance-based pricing for end-to-end CDMOs, as an example, when it comes to dedicated suites for late-phase focused CDMOs, and then lastly, discounted rates tied to long-term commitments for end-to-end CDMOs. So it is very important that you start using these new models. And it's clear that you cannot do that for 100% of your business. But there might be certain opportunities to pilot that. And as you can clearly see, there's actually a shared direction from pharma and CDMOs. So have this conversation. Think about what can you do? And in our view, from a CDMO perspective, having some skin in the game is also helping you to double down on your value proposition, right? Making your statements even more credible.
Let's take one more look into strategic partnerships before we wrap up. Risk management. And in today's volatile times, probably no surprise to anyone that this is top of mind. So, which proof points is pharma expecting to be convinced of the global reliability of their CDMO partners? Top of the list, we actually have the fact that reliability and maintaining supply is something that pharma wants to see proof of. Transparent communication, multiple qualified suppliers, or diversified global manufacturing networks come next. Probably no surprise to anyone here. But we are wondering now, is the CDMO market actually tapping into this and delivering on that need from the pharma side?
Well, it depends. For number 2 to 5, there's good alignment, and there are already measures underway in order to fulfill these pharma expectations. But as you can see, there is one significant gap, probably the largest gap that we uncovered in our research. And this is proven ability to maintain supply during past disruptions. So CDMOs need to stop talking about resilience in the future tense. You need to actually share your track record, share examples where you have successfully navigated through uncertainties in the past to maintain this continuity. So a key area. This is becoming really a key commercial topic and a selection criterion. So be prepared to also present the data to underpin the credibility of your statements. So with that, we would like to wrap up with 5 tangible recommendations for pharma companies as well as CDMOs. And when going through, you will likely notice something.
From a pharma side, number 1, clarify priorities up front. Don't just start talking about that when you're already in the engagement. Align partnership expectations with what you also commit in return. Signal your pricing preferences. We've seen the discrepancies on the price models, so be clear about what you want. Establish governance before problems emerge, and share feedback openly and continuously.
And for the CDMOs, make sure you define the partnership upfront. How does your blueprint look like? What are the objectives, success criteria? What is the governance model? And also making sure that your commercial narrative, your messaging is aligned with individual pharma segment needs, their preferences, their priorities. So differentiation is key here. And also double down on those areas where right now there are low fulfillment scores, especially on those areas that matter most to pharma. And on the partnership model side, expand beyond cost plus. Move towards performance-based partnership models selectively where it makes sense to really underpin the credibility and skin in the game in your partnerships. And also, regarding resilience, make this provable. So, not just promised, but clear data. Clarita, notice something.
Well, Khan, I would say, actually, it's quite aligned. We both seek the same thing. Clarity from the start, clear commitments from everyone. Open communication, and explicit expectations.
So the gap in this industry is not ambition. It's also not capability. It's the conversations that both sides keep deferring. Have them earlier.
With that, thank you very much for your attention, and we welcome you to scan the QR code so we can send along the full report once it's being published.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Carl. Appreciate it. Well done. Thank you. Thank you very much. Excellent. It's a fantastic start, and I'd encourage everybody to download the report when it's released and also to participate in the next phase of research.